Hello and welcome to it. You're watching #Africa. I'm Duduzile Ramela, and in the next 15 minutes, we'll be taking a comprehensive look at some of the stories that dominated headlines across the continent. And we begin in Mozambique, where several suspected militant attacks have rocked the north of the country. At least 7 people were killed by machete-wielding men earlier this week. 4 others were injured. Late last month, 10 people, including children, were beheaded in the northern town of Palma. Police are hunting the suspects. In Eritrea, a 2-decade-long conflict with neighboring Ethiopia may soon be over. Ethiopia has agreed to implement a peace agreement first signed in 2000. The countries have been fighting since a boundary commission handed a disputed town to Eritrea in 1998. Ethiopia rejected the move and a war ensued, killing tens of thousands of people. And finally, the United Nations is joining other global powers in stepping up sanctions on South Sudan. The global body wants to impose possible asset freezes and travel bans to negotiate an end to the 5-year-long civil war. The sanctions will come into play if the conflict isn't resolved by the end of this month. The war was sparked when President Salva Kiir accused former deputy Riek Machar of attempting a coup. Now, thousands of opposition MDC supporters marched through Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, on Wednesday. A protest like this would never have happened under President Robert Mugabe. The MDC is protesting against the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. The party is accusing it of planning to rig the country's elections later this month in favor of ZANU-PF. To discuss this, I'm joined in studio by Africa analyst Gideon Chitaga. Always a pleasure chatting to you, Gideon.
Thank you.
It seems indeed a change has come in Zimbabwe. 2 rival political parties taking to the streets just hours apart, peacefully at that. Is it safe to say that the country is fertile for the elections later this month?
Yes, I think the pre-election environment has been generally peaceful. So, and by peaceful we mean that there has been no reports of physical violence. I would take that to be a effect of the promise that Mnangagwa has made to the world and to Zimbabweans that these elections are going to be peaceful. So that is an important factor to acknowledge, and I think it's very important in terms of allowing Zimbabweans to freely vote. But as you referred to the demonstrations, there are sticking issues between the opposition and the government, and I hope that there will be some kind of engagement to deal with those matters.
Let's unpack those sticking issues.
So the reason why the opposition went on to demonstrate is because of the fact that they are raising concerns against the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and specifically one of the major issues relates to the register of voters. So ZEC has not been able to produce a final register, and the complaint from the opposition is that they do not have access to even the interim register that is there. ZEC's response has been that they uploaded the temporary register they have in their website, and it's open to everybody. This is a sticking point because the register is a very important document. Previously, during President Mugabe's reign, he basically denied the opposition access to the voters' roll. So I think that the opposition and the government will be able to engage and make sure that that document is made available to all the parties who are interested, to the candidates and to the voters themselves.
Very, very critical. Let's look at the election promise of the frontrunners. ZANU-PF, with its president Emmerson Mnangagwa, have come out to say that Zimbabwe is open for business. What is the election promise of the MDC when Nelson Chamisa is concerned?
This is a very difficult question, and perhaps one that relates to the weaknesses in the MDC Alliance campaign. Their messaging has been all over the place, and there hasn't been clarity on their promise. So the promise offered by Mnangagwa that Zimbabwe is open for business, it is a very simple take-home message. The MDC has not been able to offer that, but their message has been anchored on issues of governance, that they promise a a government that will respect the rule of law, that will provide democracy, a government that will respect the rights of the people and human dignity. They are also offering to create employment and to resuscitate the economy. Zimbabwe's economy is probably 50 years behind many of the other African countries. You can't even compare it to other world players. However, I think in the 52, 53 days that are left in the campaign, the MDC should solidify its message and bring about a very simple take-home message to the voters. And by the way, I understand that they are launching their policy manifesto today, as we speak.
Right. Let's look at other political parties that are running in the election. There's over 100 other political parties that are running for the election. Even though we always talk about the two frontrunners, just how much will they influence the vote?
Again, it's an important question, and I think it's basically an issue of framing of the news and the focus on ZANU-PF and the MDC. So there are so many other political parties, and they are rarely mentioned. Just to refer to the Mass Public Opinion Institute of Zimbabwe survey, which they did in collaboration with Afrobarometer, they did a voter survey, and from that survey, they say that ZANU-PF and Mnangagwa are likely to win with 42% of their respondents stating that they would prefer to vote for them. Nelson Chamisa is likely to get 31%. So if you look at that percentage, there is a 29% of voters who possibly belong with the other parties, or they just did not state who they identify with. And this is a huge vote, a swing vote between the parties.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but Zimbabweans living in the diaspora will not be allowed to vote. Are you going home to vote?
I will definitely vote, and I would encourage all diasporans to go home to vote.
And that's where we leave it. Thank you very much. Always a great pleasure chatting to you. African analyst Gideon Chitaga. After the break, Africa's potential to drive economic growth via the tourism industry. We'll give you those details and more. Welcome back. At least 46 Ethiopians have drowned trying to cross from Somalia to Yemen. Their boat capsized in rough seas off Yemen's coast. Survivors say at least 100 people were on the boat. Yemeni authorities have also deported over 130 migrants.
Yemen has long been a transit point for migrants and refugees from East Africa, but it's ill-equipped to deal with them. It's the poorest country on the Arabian Peninsula and has been embroiled in a civil war for the past 3 years. Millions have been displaced and the country now faces its own humanitarian crisis.
Today we are deporting 132 illegal immigrants as usual. They are Africans from Ethiopia. This is not the first time and won't be the last. We deported 100 migrants 2 days ago and there will be more in the coming days. This is a normal occurrence. The news about the UN officials deporting the Africans is not true, because they have always been deported by the International Organization for Migrants, which has not been the case for years.
Despite the dangers, the number of people making the journey continues to increase. Around 7,000 arrive monthly, and last year alone, over 100,000 arrived in Yemen. They're hoping to find work in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf Arab states.
The Nigerian government has recovered around 1.2 billion rand from individuals and companies through a tax amnesty. The voluntary asset and income declaration scheme gives tax evaders immunity from prosecution. They also escape penalty charges and interest if they declare previously undisclosed assets and income. The database of registered taxpayers increased from 14 million in 2016 to more than 19 million this year. Economists have long criticized the low levels of tax collection in Africa's most populous country. Tourism ministers from across the continent have adopted a comprehensive program to strengthen the role of tourism as a key driver of the continent's economy. This was adopted at the 61st meeting of the Commission for Africa in Abuja, Nigeria this week. Africa's tourism sector grew by 8% in 2017, welcoming 62 million visitors to the continent. But this is only 5% of the world of travelers. The World Tourism Organization believes this could double over the next decade with the right collaboration, policies and investment in the sector. On to a lighter note, hospitals are usually associated with illness and death, but at least one Kenyan guitarist has been using his musical gift to change this.
26-year-old Mutinda Muteti uses his music to soothe the mind and soul. A self-taught musician, Muteti says music gets the body better conditioned to heal.
It gives me a really good feeling that every day I can come in and at least make someone smile and, you know, just break that monotony of being in the hospital. You know, like you're in one place, fixed in one bed, and you can't really have a lot to do. So when I come and I do the music and I see them, you know, happy and really appreciating what I'm doing, then it makes me really feel good. And it makes me feel like at least I'm giving out what I have to the people that really need.
He spends most of his time performing for newborn babies and their mothers in pediatric wards. Patients can't get enough of his beautiful renditions of well-known hits.
The music was awesome, and it was like a worship. It lifted me to another level. You know, I woke up when I was down, thinking about my baby. She has cried all the night. But after that worship, I was lifted to another level.
The music is so sweet. It's actually, you know, music is therapeutic. Yeah, it's healing in a way, consoling. You actually feel some relief. Yeah, very encouraging.
It's a sentiment the hospital's management hopes will spread.
I wish that more people can embrace, more hospitals can embrace music therapy, because the benefits are not just emotional, but physical as well. So patients, the pain becomes less, patients get better faster, which means they are released from hospital faster.
Muteti's interest in music began as a child. He later taught himself how to play both the guitar and piano by watching YouTube videos. He hopes to one day open up the country's first music therapy center.
The healing power of music, bless his soul. Time now to see what's been trending on social media this week. Rwanda is facing some backlash for a sponsorship deal entered into with football giants Arsenal. Lawmakers in the Netherlands are calling for an investigation into the £30 million deal. Some want to know why the country concluded the deal instead of spending money on improving Rwandans' lives. Democracy Day will no longer be celebrated on the 29th of May in Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari announced it will now be celebrated on the 12th of June. He also awarded Chief Moshood Abiola the highest honor in the land. Many believe he won the 12th of June 1993 elections, which were cancelled. And Ivorian artist Laetitia Kai is giving meaning to the age-old saying, "A woman's hair is her crowning glory." Kai uses hair sculptures as a form of social commentary. They address issues around feminism, pop culture, and racism. She recently sculptured her hair into an image of a man lifting a woman's skirt. And that's it from us for now. Do stay tuned to ENCA for all the latest news. Take care and goodbye.